Darkness kills, destroys the will. Find a spark, make hearts thrill. Hear the tales of time so grim. Shine a light, don't let it dim. Heather Brown downtown, bound. True crime story she's found. In the shadows, secret stay. Need a light that finds the way.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Defeating the Darkness, True Crime Stories with Downtown Heather Brown. That's me, your host. I'm a former homicide and sexual assault prosecutor here in Orange County, California. And today we have the second episode with former and current badass homicide cold case investigator Bob Taft. And he is here to tell us another exciting homicide case that is unfiled, kind of arguably unsolved, but maybe not unsolved, just unfiled. And so welcome back to the show, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you again.
And I want to just get right to it because
Okay.
Last episode you told us this really interesting case and why you believed that we could prove it. And we debated about that, the evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. So I want to hear this next case. Give it to me. I'm the DA that you want to get to file this case. Tell me everything.
This case, we found skeletonized remains in a culvert in southern Orange County.
In a what?
In a culvert.
What's a culvert?
Like basically a pipe that goes underneath the roadway.
Oh, never heard of that.
In 1983.
Who found it?
A couple kids playing back when South Orange County wasn't nearly as populated as it was now or dense. Kids were playing in a field and they came across what they believed to be a human skull. So they went home, told their folks. Folks came out, took a look. Yep, that looks like a skull, and called the sheriff's department to report the discovery of these remains.
Wow.
So they recover about 80% of the remains. And at that time, based on the forensic analysis of the skeleton, they believed it was likely a female of African descent, relatively short in stature with a slight build. And the unique thing about her was that she had a very distinctive gold-rimmed tooth. Not something that you would see commonly these days. And that it was suspected that this type of dental work was performed somewhere outside of the United States. So that's really all they had to work with back in 1983. And they, did their due diligence in trying to get her identified by doing missing persons reports and so forth. And unfortunately, she was never identified.
So they found her remains in 83.
They found her remains in 1983.
Do you know how long it takes for someone to become a complete skeleton?
There's a lot of factors. It depends on whether
exposure to the sun.
Correct. Whether they're surface laid, whether they're buried, whether there's any significant animal activity and so forth. But it was estimated that she had probably been there within 2 years, give or take.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, that case, and we talked about the other episode, it goes cold relatively quick because they have no idea who this individual is. And a lot of times your homicide investigation starts with who's your victim. So if you can't identify your victim, you're really behind the power curve. So her case went cold relatively quickly. And there were a couple attempts through the years to try and get her identified by using some new technology. They had done a updated forensic sketching. They had done a 3D reconstruction of her skull based on CAT scans of the skull and so forth to produce some new renderings of what this individual may have looked like. And unfortunately, no new investigative leads. So fast forward to, I want to say 2020, 2021. Obviously, after the arrest of Joseph DeAngelo, the concept of...
That's the Golden State Killer.
Correct, Golden State Killer. The concept of forensic investigative genetic genealogy was brought to law enforcement circles to try and identify these individuals. And, one of the things in working my position cold cases is that I became immersed in doing this forensic investigative genetic genealogy, where we started doing it ourselves in-house with the sheriff's department. So one of the cases we took on relatively early was, let's try and get her identified through genealogy. And anybody who's worked these type of cases know that anyone with suspected African heritage becomes exceedingly difficult once you go past the 1860s, obviously because of, the cultural influence at the time. Unfortunately, people of African descent in the United States were slaves, and they had a tendency to change names depending on who the slave owner was and so forth. So trying to track any family history beyond 1860 becomes exceedingly difficult. So we worked on her case for roughly 2 years to try and get her identified without a definitive identification of who she was. We were fortunate enough to identify what they call familial groups or familial relationships. So we knew that this particular last name was a part of her genetic history. This particular name was also part of her genetic history. And we suspected that those tied back to either Jamaica or Colombia. And then, unfortunately, because we couldn't definitively identify who she was, that investigation, again, kind of came to a standstill. Even with this new technology, we weren't able to identify who she was. So it sat dormant for a little bit. And every once in a while, I would go through and review these cases. So I started looking at this case again, and using the available software platforms that allow us to do this genealogy, I was able to identify a distant genetic relative that had a number of associations with our unknown individual. They were pretty far removed, but his lineage contained a lot of the same surnames or last names of people that we were focusing on in our investigation. So I reached out to this individual and I explained to him the parameters of this case. And I said, would you be willing to help us try and identify who this person is? You have a very extensive family tree with a lot of these same genetic groups in there. Are you willing to help us identify this person? He's like, absolutely, 100%. I'll help you out.
Now, I want to back up for a second. Did you get the DNA from the bones?
We got the DNA from a bone extraction. Yes.
Okay.
And again, we used the SNP testing as opposed to the STR testing.
Gotcha.
Although she also did have a STR profile on file, we were primarily focused on the SNP DNA results.
Okay.
And again, when you're looking at these more diverse populations, it is rare that you will find somebody over 100 or 200 centimorgans. If we're talking, male Eastern European, you're going to get some high numbers and you should be able to figure out who it was relatively quickly. When you come to these more diverse populations, we had a case where the victim turned out to be Chinese. Our highest centimorgan was 21, our highest count of. So we're talking eighth cousin. So there's thousands of people in that family tree, and we're unable to narrow it down. In this particular case, we had a similar problem because we had very low centimorgan numbers. So we're talking thousands of people in that tree to try and narrow it down to who we figure this individual was. And because this individual had experience in dealing with his own family and his extended family members, we asked him for help. And unfortunately, over the course of about 6-7 months, we still weren't able to resolve who this individual was. But he made a suggestion, and again, I'm always up for trying new things. He made a suggestion that there was a particular Facebook group that primarily dealt with missing people from the 1970s and 1980s. And he said, why don't you reach out to that Facebook group administrator and inquire about you putting your case on that Facebook page? And I never thought about that, but absolutely,
brilliant.
Give it a try.
I love this kid.
So I reached out to the site administrator, explained to her the parameters of the case, and she's like, absolutely, we'd be happy to profile your case. So this was the end of 2023 timeframe, November, December 2023. So I put together essentially a press release and photographs and the forensic sketches of what we believe she looked like, and copy of the picture of the gold tooth, and this is where the remains were found. These are kind of the genetic family lineages that we have. If anybody has information, please reach out. And within a month, a young lady who was living in the Southeast had reached out and said, I think this may be my mother.
I just got chills.
And like you say, we have the tendency of always going in with a little skepticism. I had reached out to this individual who was living in the Southeast, and at the time, we had no ties to anybody living in the Southeast. So initially, I was a little skeptical, and I've had other cases where people have come forward before, and it turned out to be nothing. So, but willing to keep an open mind, I'm like, okay, tell me your story. And she begins to tell me her story that, her mom and dad had met in Panama, and that she has not seen her mom since she was 2 years old. And I'm like, okay, well, why do you think that, what's the tie to Orange County? She says, well, my dad was a Marine stationed at El Toro. And I was like, okay, well, tell me more, because, obviously that's the heart of Orange County. And she alluded to that, she was estranged from her mom, or from her dad and her stepmom. But she had always been told by her biological father that my mom abandoned me, and he never knew what happened to her.
So the guy who was stationed at El Toro.
The gentleman who was stationed at El Toro.
Was he a Marine?
He was a Marine.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Don't mean to blaspheme the Marines, because my family's Marine Corps family.
I'm a former Marine as well.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, but so her bio dad, the Marine who used to be stationed at El Toro, was telling her your mom abandoned you when you were 2.
Correct.
And did he raise her?
He did not, but I didn't find that out until later on. Okay. So to continue with the timeline of events, and I said, okay, that piques my interest. Have you or anyone in your family ever taken a consumer DNA test, which is like Ancestry, 23andMe, MyHeritage, one of those tests? And she says, yes, my son has taken a test. I said, okay, would your son be willing to share his DNA results with us, and we'd be able to tell right away whether there's any connection or not? And I don't know if you recall, but this was about the time that 23andMe was kind of going through their problems, where they had people hacking the site and so forth. So it took almost 2 months to get those DNA results. And utilizing the GEDmatch Pro platform that we use that has law enforcement access, we were able to compare her son's genetic profile to our Jane Doe. And like I talked about before, the number of centimorgans confirmed that it was a grandparent-grandchild relationship.
Wow.
So that is a very close relationship. And we knew right away that it's likely that this individual
was in fact your mom.
Was in fact your mom.
Okay, so tell me where in relation to the Marine Corps base at El Toro was mom found?
3 miles away.
Oh, call that a clue.
I call it a clue. Yes.
So mom abandoned the kid, but didn't get too far.
Correct.
Ended up in okay, so now what happens? Tell me.
Now that we know who the victim is, now we have to start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So now I need to know about dad. Like, what's dad's story? So I reached out to the Naval Criminal Intelligence Division. I said, hey, get me a copy of this individual's military records. So again, it took a little while to get those. And in conjunction with that, now I'm communicating with the daughter. I'm like, tell me more. Like, what's your story? So it turns out that, and again, I'll try and give you the Reader's Digest version, that said name Marine and mom meet when he's stationed in Panama. So they meet, mom gets pregnant, they wind up getting married, and daughter is born in Panama. Shortly after daughter is born in Panama, he gets transferred to Millington, Tennessee to do avionics school. So if you're familiar with the way Marine Corps installations work. If you're going to school, you're not bringing your family with you. Like, you're there for a short amount of time. They're not going to pay to put your family there and then pay to move them again. So when they leave Panama, they initially go to his parents' house in the Midwest. He subsequently goes to school in Tennessee, leaving mom and daughter with parents in the Midwest. So now he's unaccompanied in Tennessee. He meets another Marine,
Female
Marine, engages in an extramarital affair, and I won't spill the beans yet, but they're engaged in an affair while mom and daughter are in the Midwest with his folks. Well, apparently mom and his mother don't get along to the point where she says, hey, you got to go. So now she comes to Tennessee to be with her husband and brings the daughter with, and
busts up his little party.
She discovers the affair. So she becomes upset, and depending on whose account you believe, she goes to stay, mom and daughter go to stay with her sister living in Georgia. He and his affair partner are stationed on opposite coasts. He's stationed at El Toro. She's stationed at Cherry Point, North Carolina. From the daughter's account and contacting the mom's family, and again, another caveat to this is that she did not discover her mom's family until 2017.
Wow.
So she never knew anything about her mom's.
Yeah, if she's 2 when her mom turns up missing.
And her dad and now stepmom continually say, your mom abandoned you.
And the stepmom is the one that he hooked up with?
And the stepmom is the one that he hooked up with.
Okay.
And to further delineate the timeline, he goes to California. His mistress goes to North Carolina. The sister who's living in Georgia, who we interviewed, says...
This is mom's sister, right?
This is mom's sister. He says, husband reached out to the mom who's in Georgia and says, I made a mistake. I really wish you'd reconcile with me. And so mom agrees that, okay, I'm going to reconcile and try and reestablish my family because, I want to have this parental, this family unit. So she either goes to Tennessee or goes to California to reunite with him. And that aspect of it is still a little unclear, whether she went to Tennessee or whether she went directly to California. But we'll clear up some of that a little bit. Once she leaves Georgia with the daughter, she's never seen or heard from again. Or the daughter. Neither one. Mom's family never hears from either one of them ever again.
Not the daughter, not the mother.
Not the daughter, not the mom. Again, once we get her identified, we were able to track down some of these family members, and interviewing one of mom's sisters, she says that yes, when she was after leaving Panama and going to the United States, she would continually call and talk to my family, who the majority were still in Panama. There was a couple in the United States, but the majority of her family, including her mom and dad, were still in Panama. So she would call and contact them all the time, to the point where she would always call collect, and those calls got to be very expensive. So her dad said, hey, you need to not call so much. So she was in constant contact until it suddenly stopped. And then she was never heard from again. So like, okay, this is an intriguing account. To further muddy the waters, at some point when the husband and the mom and the daughter are still in Tennessee, he files for divorce. And he files the paperwork in Tennessee. And then at some point from Tennessee, he goes to California. After reviewing his military records, there's a copy of his divorce decree. And in that divorce decree is an an initial agreement saying that mom's supposed to get custody of the daughter and supposed to get $150 a month in child support and household goods and so on and so forth. So that's in mid 1979. Fast forward to November of 1979, mom is a no-show for the final divorce hearing. And there's no transcript of what was said during that hearing, but he winds up getting full custody of the daughter. And at some point, the daughter is back in California with dad. Well, it turns out that the mistress, who was stationed in North Carolina, was pregnant with his child.
The plot thickens.
At the time, you could request to be separated from the service due to pregnancy. So she gets out of the Marine Corps, and her family's from Northern California. She comes back to California. She hooks back up with him, and his final divorce hearing was in November of 1979. In January of 1980, he marries the mistress here in California. 3 months later, she gives birth to his child. The plot thickens because, and again, this is from the daughter and the mom side of the family, that there was a fair amount of resentment against the daughter because she was the daughter of his first wife. So turns out that stepmom's sister adopts the daughter. So now the daughter is growing up. And the other thing is that, mom and mistress have 2 other children. So while daughter is growing up, the 2 people that she thinks are her cousins are really her half siblings. And it was all very a convoluted mess, but every time at post 2017, when she discovered her mom's family, their immediate question is, where's your mom? And her immediate question is like, I don't know anything about my mom. I was hoping you could tell me. Well, it turns out that one of the other daughters tracked the husband down in El Toro in 1980, 1981, and tracks him down and contacts him on base and says, where's my sister? He's like, I don't know. She may be in San Francisco. She may be here. She may be there. Like, I don't know where she is. Unfortunately, the sister didn't really press the issue. She also asked, where's the daughter? Where's she? Mm-hmm. He tells the sister that, she's staying with my mom in the Midwest, where in actuality, she's with the mistress and her family and right there on base. So the daughter's there, but he says, no, she's not here. She's with my mom. And so again, a little fish.
More lies. We call that clue. Clue.
But in talking with the mom's family, it turns out over the years that every time somebody would ask him about, hey, whatever happened, he would give various accounts. He would say, she left her in the crib while we were on base in Tennessee. I never saw her again. Left her at the front gate. Never saw her again. Like, we all came to California and I dropped her off at a hotel in Santa Ana and I never saw her again. Like, all these various accounts. So we eventually go and contact him in the Midwest, and we tell the story that, hey, we've recently been contacted by your daughter, who subsequently contacted dad and says, whatever happened with mom. But we go in with the guys that were following up on this missing person investigation. She was never reported missing to anyone. So we go and say, hey, we're doing this missing person investigation. What can you tell me about her? And he is very standoffish, distances himself from the whole thing. And his story was, we had agreed to divorce while I was in Tennessee. And even though I had this previous agreement that she was supposed to get custody and child support. She knew that she couldn't effectively raise the daughter on her own, so she voluntarily turned the daughter over to me, and I last saw her in Tennessee, and I have no idea how she wound up in California. Or at that point, she's like, I don't know where she is. I never saw her again. I left her in Tennessee. That's his initial story. And we don't confront him with anything because we're kind of doing the ruse like, hey, we're just following up on this missing person investigation. Because I wanted to lock him into a story. Like, hey, what are you going to tell me?
Exactly.
So we also interview his second wife. And she's basically, I know nothing. I see nothing. I was asleep on my bunk. Like, I don't know anything about it. Okay, fine. So, but it turns out that he has a very estranged relationship with everybody in his family. He doesn't get along with his own biological son. They haven't talked in years. The stepmom is very submissive. Apparently, he had a history of physical abuse, extramarital affairs. They had at one point moved to Florida. He cheated on her, left, went with another woman, and when that
She should have seen that coming. I'm just saying.
They reconciled, got remarried, and the whole thing. So very contentious relationship. He doesn't get along with anybody. We interview him now again, a little bit more confrontational, because now I tell him that I know all this information. Like, I pulled your military records. I know your divorce decree. I know this. I know that. Like, hey, tell me this whole story. And I'm sure you've seen it. Like, just the person's body language is like, oh, I'm really uncomfortable now. Before more, he was kind of laid back. He's like, whatever. And I started confronting him with all these inconsistencies. Like, tell me about this, tell me about that. He admitted to the affair. And again, the story of I left her in Tennessee after we signed that divorce decree.
Yeah.
That's another new account of what happened. Like, nobody had ever heard that story before. Nobody ever heard that she voluntarily turned the daughter over to me and we came to California together. And that was a first time account of that. The other thing, again, me being familiar with how the Marine Corps works, he was a junior grade Marine at the time. So I'm like, okay, so tell me this. You drove from Tennessee to California in a 1974 pickup, just you and her, and she's in the car seat. Yes, that's what happened. I'm like, okay, well, what happened when you got to California? Where'd you stay? We stayed in the transient barracks. Really? You stayed in the transient barracks with
a two-year-old?
Like, no, that's not going to happen. And again, the first time we interviewed him, he denied having an affair and meeting his wife and getting married and having kids. He denied all of that. Second interview, I confronted him with all this, and he eventually relents, like, yes, we had an affair, she found out, all this other stuff. But he's still sticking to his guns that I don't know what happened to her. I left her in Tennessee, and, that's the end of it. So at the very tail end of my interview, I had asked him, like, hey, did she have any distinctive tattoos? Did she have any distinctive earrings, marks, anything like that? No. Did she have any distinctive dental work? Like, did she have, any visible dental work? And she's like, I think she might have. I said, oh, did she happen to have a gold-rimmed front tooth? She's like, yeah, she might have. And I show him a picture of from the sketch that we had done, an individual of her suspected likeness that emphasized that tooth. I said, hey, did it look like this? And he's like, yeah, her tooth absolutely looked like that. Okay, fine. So then I pull up a picture of a skull with that tooth. And I says, does that tooth look like hers? He says, yeah, it kind of looked like that. Doesn't register to him that I'm showing him a picture of his ex-wife's skull. So I'm looking at him, and he's just looking at that, and he's just like completely nonchalant. And I tell him, I say, we found her. And his first thing was, really? Not like, found who, found what? Like, oh my God, is this my ex-wife? Nothing. He just says, really? I said, yeah. I said, we found her 3 miles from where you were stationed at El Toro. And he continued to stick to his guns. Like, I don't know how she got there. She may have met friends who took her to California. And I said, in all that time, even if she did wind up in California, and obviously she was right here at El Toro, she made no effort to contact you or to contact her daughter. No, she never did, which I find hard to believe. So
You can't exactly make a phone call when you're 6 feet under.
correct. So again, this is one of those completely circumstantial case. Have no physical evidence tying him to her. But again, you ask the question, who benefits? You know,
Yeah.
obviously,
100%. That guy's guilty.
he 100%
and I would file that case.
well, you're the only one. So
Well, Matt Murphy would file it too.
I don't know.
Maybe not.
I think Matt became a little skeptical in his old age.
Nah.
We ran. I don't know if we've ever talked about this.
Did you hear that, Murphy? Skeptical in your old age.
The Cecil Turner case, the baby that was in the creek bed in Mission Viejo, where
Oh, God, that sounds terrible.
the biological mom and the stepdad were adamant that somebody took him out of the apartment, and we developed that whole case too. And again, whose benefits we linked it to? It had to be either the mom or the stepdad.
I know, but listen, it's a murder case and people want you to be able to prove it
Correct.
above and beyond.
We ran that case by Murphy ad nauseum, and he's like, nope.
Should have filed that one, Murphy.
So, but again,
I don't know the facts
this
of it.
case, 100% circumstantial.
It is, but just the fact that she has no connections to California whatsoever, except for him, all the stuff about the divorce decree, she's going to get a little bit of his money. And back in the day, $150 a month was a lot of money.
Correct. Especially
to
a junior Marine.
A junior Marine. That's a lot of money. And he does, she's got the baby and he's got to pay.
Yes.
And yeah. Did they come up with the cause of death?
They did not.
Oh,
Although there were some, I'll just leave it at this. There were some indications that suspected that she had been a victim of foul play.
The hell's that mean? Well, no shit. She's dead.
that's
And
all
she's stuffed underground.
That's all I can disclose at this point.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I like that one. I like the weight of that evidence a little better than the.
Yeah, but again,
The
it's
babysitter
still
one.
100% circumstantial. And,
But circumstantial evidence can be much stronger than direct evidence.
I think we've had this
We
discussion
have.
before. So.
So I do think it can be. I think sometimes those are even greater because witnesses can lie.
Yes.
Right. But when you have circumstantial evidence that is reasonable and all points, to him, that guy did it for sure. He's guilty. If I'm on the jury, I'm voting guilty.
Well,
now as a DA, I think.
To continue on with the story, after we went and interviewed him and we did the whole thing, the cat's out of the bag, that, he's obviously a person of interest, we still have no definitive answer of how or when she arrived in California. Obviously, she was here, but nobody can confirm how she got here or when she got here.
No buddies from the Marines were interviewed to see, like, hey, did you ever see the wife here?
Well, there was no
Record of his buddies?
Well, no, unfortunately, because now El Toro's closed. So all those records are who knows where. And there was nothing outlined in his military records as far as friends and associates. And we even asked him, like, hey, do you associate with anybody still? And he's like, no, I don't. So he's kind of reclusive anyway. But to continue on with that, after we interviewed him, we came back to California. And precisely to answer that question, we did a press release seeking information on, hey, if anybody knows this individual or had been in contact with him in Southern California, El Toro Marine Base in the early 1980s, please reach out to us. We'd love to speak with you. And unfortunately, we didn't
Nothing?
get zero.
Crickets.
Not a single reply. But the interesting part, as part of that press conference, obviously we kind of have to play by the rules where there's only certain things that we can discuss and limitations and so forth. The news associations or the news groups reached out and contacted the daughter and basically did a phone interview with her, and she laid it all out there like only she could do. So she's like, yeah, I think my dad did it. It's laid all.
She thinks the dad did it.
Absolutely,
for sure.
100%. The entire family.
She knows how shady he is.
100%. The entire family thinks he's responsible, including his own
Son.
biological daughter, other than,
What about the ex-wife, the one that he cheated on and got back together.
They reconciled.
Oh, they're together
still
now?
together. Yes.
Do you think
and
she knew that he whacked her?
I suspect she had to know something.
Yeah, like
she obviously had.
Wait
to
a
know
minute.
something.
Last week you were going to have to pay her 100. You were bitching you had to pay her 150
Well,
bucks.
and the other interesting thing was when they were in Florida and he left the family to be with this other woman. When that relationship folded, he reached out to the stepmom and says, "Hey, I'd really love to reconcile," which is exactly the story that he did with the mom. So,
Do you think he'll turn? She turn up. What if she turns up dead?
doesn't change their stripes, so, obviously his way of doing things was when one relationship crumbles, he tries and reconciles the other one.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, but I think she knows more than she
It's letting on.
alluded to for sure. But yeah, I just love the fact that the daughter was like, "I'll tell you whatever you want to know." Where our hands are kind of tied.
Yeah, we can't say as much as they can.
Yes,
Do you think she'll talk to us?
I absolutely think she'd talk to you.
Let's get her on the phone.
Let's try. Let's see if we can.
We're gonna call the victim's daughter before we close out this episode, because we got to hear what she has to say. Should we use a fake name, or she doesn't care?
I don't think we can use her first name.
Okay. What's her first name?
Her first name is Dawn.
Dawn. We're calling Dawn. Dawn's mother was murdered, and we're going to find out who Dawn thinks it is right now, if she answers the phone.
Hi, Dawn. It's Bob Taft.
Hey, Bob.
Hi. Hey, just to let you know, I'm sitting here with Heather, and we're
Hi,
doing
Dawn.
this podcast on your mom's case, and I'm sure everyone would love to hear your side of the story if you're amenable to that.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so obviously we've communicated in the past, and this is not an easy subject to discuss for you and your family, but I'm just curious to know, kind of since the last time we've talked, has there been any new developments? Has anybody spoken to your dad about any of this? Has anything changed since the last time we talked?
No, the only thing that has changed was my half sister went up to Ohio to visit our brother. And when she stopped by our grandparents, I guess, I call them their grandparents, house, Howard's mother and stepfather, she saw them. And she didn't really, it was kind of taboo. Like I kind of tried to ask her, like, well, how was it? You guys really don't speak, everything ever since, you went out there and questioned them. No one's speaking about it. And she just said it wasn't as awkward as I thought. And she just kind of left it at that.
Huh.
So that's the only thing that I know.
Interesting, because I know we kind of talked about that, and one of the questions that we had asked was, had your dad and your stepmom told anyone that we had come out and interviewed them? And
Right.
to the best of my knowledge, they didn't tell anybody,
No, they didn't.
and they still haven't told anybody.
No, haven't told anybody at all. It's like this big, dirty, secret, taboo, however you want to label it. Yeah.
Right.
That's got to be so hard for you, Dawn, to just live through that and have your family members and this strange elephant in the room about the family knowing that perhaps your dad is responsible for your mom's murder.
Oh, for sure. I mean, but Heather, just to clear things up though, too, I don't have a relationship with anybody on that side besides my half siblings. So I know who they are, but I don't really. I was 20 years old before I met my paternal grandmother, and she was the one that actually gave me pictures of my mother, and they were just little Polaroid pictures. So I didn't even know what she looked like until I was 20. I was in the military, so I moved a lot, and so I wasn't I moved a lot, so I didn't have a lot of contact with them. And it just kind of, we just, you know, I guess you can say fell apart. I mean, there really wasn't a relationship there anyway, but that I only saw them like once or twice in my whole adult life.
Wow.
So,
So our listeners want to know, who do you think murdered your mom?
oh, for sure, Howard did it.
All right, there you
I have no doubt. I mean, even before I found her, even my sister said, I wonder if that's the reason why her parents, our father, her mother stay together, because they have some dysfunctional codependency because they share a dirty secret.
Yeah, I think you could totally be onto something. I think you're right. I don't think there's any way she didn't like ask questions like, what? She just abandoned her 2-year-old? None of that makes sense. There's no chance. There's no chance your mom abandoned you at 2 years old. So I'm really sorry that we had to meet under these circumstances.
I'm sorry, Heather. I didn't mean to interrupt. Even after finding my mother's family, my family, and them telling me how they grew up and their family values, they're like, there's no way she would have abandoned you. No way at all.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm really sorry that happened, but I'm glad, I'm at least a little bit glad that, investigator Taft was able to at least, find you and kind of get solve the mystery of who this woman was that was so brutally murdered.
yes. I've been searching for so long. So to have her home with me is bittersweet. I mean,
I bet.
of course, I would want to meet her alive, but
I think I hope you can rest easy knowing that she was taken from you and that she did not leave you.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that we're meeting under these circumstances, but I love the fact that you're bold enough to speak out and talk about who you think did it.
Well, let me ask you this. One of the things that me, obviously being on this side of the equation, I've never had to experience the other side of the equation. I've never been in your shoes. So I'd be interested to know how this has affected you and your family from your perspective, knowing that, from a point in time as short ago as 2017 until now, knowing what you know, how has that changed you or affected you and your family?
And the aspect that I always knew Howard was a bad person, in that aspect, it just solidifies that. I mean, how it's changed myself and my family is that we're not just missing a mother, a grandmother, a great grandmother. We're missing our culture, medical history, so many things. It's just, I don't know. Words can't even describe the things that we have missed. But the bright side is that I did find her siblings. Unfortunately, some have passed. So I think, I was robbed from some of that as well,
Yes. How has the relationship been with your mom's side of the family? I know you alluded to having a family reunion not too long ago where you got to meet much of her extended family.
Yes, it was beautiful. I mean, when I found them in 2017, I flew out to Florida like the very next day, and it was like we didn't miss a beat. It was like we weren't even strangers. We are very close, especially Claudia. She when we speak, she likes to sit down and we'll talk for hours, and she'll just tell me stories of like my great grandparents, of my grandparents, and the things I missed out, and the things that she remembers of me as a baby. Even though it was a short period of time that she had with me, just to share things that I've missed. We're all very, very close. They all, if I call them, they call me. We visit each other. It's I couldn't ask for a better relationship with all my cousins and my aunts and uncles.
Well, that and I told you before, that's kind of why I do what I do, to be able to provide some, and I'll never use the word closure because there's no such thing as closure in cases like this, but to provide some resolution to you, to know that even though your dad's side of the family continuously said that your mom abandoned you, that truly was not the case.
Right.
So I take some comfort in knowing that I was able to provide that.
Little bit of light in the darkness.
Absolutely, light in the darkness.
Yes.
So
Yes. And I can't thank you enough for that. I really can't.
well, and I was happy to finally bring her home.
Right.
Yeah, you brought.
Because I've had so many dead ends in the search for her. And for you to actually contact me and listen to my story and actually believe me, I just can't thank you enough.
Well, there's no thanks necessary. I'm happy to provide that sense of resolution to you. So again, I take the benefit in being able to do that for you as much as you are, happy that you had somebody to, like you said, listen to your story.
Yes.
So,
Well, gosh, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with our listeners your thoughts on this. And I just hope that someday that maybe that there is a little more justice.
hopefully. I wouldn't say that door is closed, but, if it was up to me, I'd kick it open with everything I got. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to do that any longer. But again, I want to thank you and appreciate the fact that you're willing to speak with us about, how this case has affected you.
Of course. I mean, anything to keep this alive and going, and hopefully.
If our listeners know anything, feel free to reach out. I'm telling the listeners, if they know anything about this case, feel free to call into the sheriff's department and give the information.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Please do.
Any last thing you would like to say or would like to add?
No, just thanks for listening. Thanks for keeping, her name alive, and hope,
There's always hope.
justice for her.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Don. Well, thank you again.
No, thank you.
All right. I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
I'm sure we will.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Good night. Thanks. Wow. That was really amazing and powerful. Thank you so much, Don, for coming on. Bob, and thank you for all that you've done for that family to bring, I know you said there's no closure, but you definitely brought it full circle, gave them some answers, and were a light in the darkness for that family. And I know that that's going to carry with them for the rest of their lives.
Yes. Well, and to close out this story, once we finally got her identified, we can now dispose of her remains. I shouldn't say dispose, but we can make the appropriate arrangements. So, this portion of it happened right before I retired. So literally my last days, I was working on, getting the cremation taken care of and getting the death certificate and so forth. And I had planned a cruise leaving from Florida immediately after my retirement. Well, it just so happens that Dawn lives in Florida, and I was like, hey, I'm coming to Florida. I'll bring your mom's remains to you, because I didn't feel comfortable of, putting her in a UPX box and she deserves better than that. So
Did you fly her first class, Bob?
I did not. Well, I didn't fly her first class, but I said, hey, I'm coming to Florida, and I'd be honored if I can meet up with you and deliver your mom's remains. And unfortunately, she had some plans, so we couldn't meet up before I left for my cruise out of Florida. So I confirmed it was okay with Dawn, and I brought her mom on the cruise with us.
No way. Oh, so you did take her first class. I love it.
We did. We took her through a tour of the Caribbean, which I felt appropriate. And when we got back, I drove over and personally dropped off her mom's remains. And she had, her extended family there. So it was actually a very nice reunion to finally be able to deliver her mom home.
Wow. That's a beautiful thing. I love that story. Well, God bless you for doing that, Bob.
It's the least I could do.
Right?
All these cases, all these cold cases, even the ones that remain unsolved, it's someone's loved one somewhere. And every human being deserves the dignity of, number one, getting their name back, and number two, being treated with respect. So it was the least I could do.
Amen. Well, thank you so much.
Sure, absolutely.
Wow, that was amazing. Well, we're out of time, but we're going to have Bob Taft back for another one of these juicy stories for sure. Will you come back, Bob?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, until we meet again, if you can't find the light, be the light in the darkness like this guy right here, cold case homicide investigator Bob Taft. So long. We'll see you next time.
Be the light, shine so bright.